Welcome back to episode 3 of Our Life Beginnings and Always. We still have 3 moments left to do for the first step, so we will get into those and hopefully finish these in this episode. So let's get started. All right, we're gonna do long day next. It was another scorching summer day, the kind where no sooner had you finished 1 cup of water, you were already filling it up again. Everyone else had something on, so that afternoon it was just you and Shiloh. This didn't happen much, especially since Cove had arrived. Without Lizzie around, Shiloh looked to you for all the answers. It made you feel... How'd I feel? I guess nothing. It didn't frustrate me. I wasn't pleased about it, so I guess nothing. Shiloh went along with whatever you wanted. So he wasn't a bother, but he also wasn't that much fun. Damn. You drained yet another drink and frowned at the empty vessel. Your thirst was gone, but you still craved something icy cold and refreshing. Something sweet, something like... ice cream sandwich, absolutely. You craved soft ice cream sandwich between 2 cookies. There was nothing like that to be found at home. You knew that without needing to look. Your moms didn't keep sweets in the house. Outside there were plenty of places where such goodies could be obtained, but they were shops that demanded payment in exchange for their products. A radical idea, truly. You sighed. We're gonna whine. I think we're gonna whine. You voiced your predicament out loud. I want an ice cream sandwich. Shiloh, who had been draped over the sofa, perked up. That sounds good. We don't have anything like that in the house. And I don't have any money. Oh, let me check if I have any. Shiloh rummaged in his backpack and proudly produced an assortment of coins, plus 1 stray button. You set the button aside and counted the coins in neat piles. Just over $1, you announced this to Shiloh. He had almost certainly come to the same conclusion, but he'd been watching you expectantly. It's not enough. It's a start. Shiloh beamed at you. We need to find some more. Okay. The 2 of you lifted couch cushions, stuck tiny hands down deep crevices in the sofa and under furniture, and scoured the back of the drawers. Most of what you found was useless or gross: bent paper clips, fluffy wisps of dust, or sandy crumbs. But every so often, okay. I guess that makes sense. One of you would strike silver or bronze, add it to the growing pile of coins. Your mind wandered to the $20 bill tucked away in your room. It was enough for you and Shiloh to get whatever you wanted and more, but you didn't take it out. That was too special to hand over so freely. Besides, Shiloh would be curious about where it came from, and might even mention your wealth to Lizzie. The exchange had been secret. Listen, why am I Mr. Krabs in every universe? I didn't even make this choice. Dusty and disheveled from checking every room and squinting into every tiny nook, the 2 of you finished pooling your finds. Shiloh held his breath as you counted the coins once again. $2.53 and 2 buttons. You didn't know when the second button had decided to join the party, but you were too pleased with your successful haul to throw it out. Is that enough? You figured he knew the answer without looking to you for confirmation. But the thrill of your success and the reward that would follow canceled out any other feelings you might have had about that. Yeah. You could now afford something at the shops. Just one thing. But that was infinitely better than none. Shiloh clapped his hands. Yay! The 2 of you dashed outside. The promise of sugar buoyed you on to your destination where, breathless but happy, you stared at the overwhelming number of options. You knew what you wanted, but it wasn't just you who had contributed to the funds to get the treat. He seemed to notice your pause. Aren't you getting an ice cream sandwich? Shiloh asked, as though he was entirely separate from the decision, rather than someone who had a stake in the outcome. Do you mind? Shiloh cocked his head to the side. It was your idea. You should choose. Listen, indecisive queen that I am, are you sure it's okay? Yeah. Really? Really? Pleased you bought the dessert you longed for. Sweet success. Finally, the reward for all your hard work was in your hands. You bit the ice cream sandwich. The chewy chocolate biscuit complemented the creamy vanilla ice cream inside. You held it out to Shiloh so he could take a turn. He shook his head. He didn't want any? After everything he did to help get it? That was weird. I tried to include Shiloh. Even if Shiloh said it was okay, every story you'd ever seen on TV or read in a book said that sharing was caring. That's so true. Words to live by, man. You stood your ground, even as the treat started to trickle dangerously towards your fingers. It's only fair that you have some. We both bought it. But you want it more than I do. And getting to play was a lot of fun already. So you can have it. That's more fair. You held it out to him. I want you to have some even more than I want to finish it, so eat your part. Relentingly, Shiloh took the treat and gave it a taste. His eyes lit up. It's really good, thank you. You smiled, pleased with your good deed. You picked the best one. Did he mean that? Shiloh was always nice no matter what happened. Even if he hated it, you knew he wouldn't say so. Maybe he thought it was gross, and that's the real reason why he didn't want to take some. You had no idea. You studied him as he ate a little more. He had every appearance of enjoying himself. Still weird. The two of you began to head back home as he ate. You walked side by side on the shore in silence, but your thoughts kept drifting to the boy beside you. Why didn't he speak up for himself? It was almost as if Shiloh didn't know how to say what he felt or was too afraid. Are you leaving for real? Okay. Why didn't he speak up for himself? It was almost as if Shiloh didn't know how to say what he felt or was too afraid to. You figured that was his problem, didn't care. Are you scared of me? Thought that was kind of sad. We'll just say we thought it was kind of sad. Not being able to talk to people isn't fun. You didn't want to be the kind of person people were scared to tell their honest opinion to. You considered asking Shiloh about it, but if he couldn't give an opinion on something like ice cream, then he wasn't going to open up about this. You hoped for the best. Maybe you were wrong, or if you were right, maybe he'd feel better about it soon. Shiloh made you unsure about setting a label on the experience of spending the afternoon with just him. There had been good times and there had been confusing ones. You were positive of one thing, at least. The treat was delicious and that was nice. The sun was low on the horizon as you returned to your neighborhood. There you spotted two very familiar figures up ahead, Lizzie and Cove. You opened your mouth to make your presence known to them just as you saw tears in Cove's face. You walked straight over, Shiloh at your heels. Once there, we should probably ask what happened. Without a time machine, the only way you were going to find out was by asking the witnesses. Very serious. Lizzie might have done something, but she could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or even come to Cove's aid. You wanted to hear the story. Cove, what happened? I got yelled at. I took a deep, steadying breath. Some grandparents got mad at me. Sorry. Lizzie jerked her head in the direction of a nearby house. Your heart sunk. You knew exactly what had happened. Every year, the same meat old couple rented out that condo for the summer. You, Lizzie, and Shiloh knew to stay away from them, but Cove couldn't have. They're like that with everyone. Even your mom struggled to find anything nice to say about them. But the elderly pair particularly took offense to kids. Didn't matter if they were really nice like Cove. Yeah, Lizzie said. Lizzie drew herself up at that. She looked pointedly in your direction. Listen, I didn't accuse you of shit. You chill. I was helping. That's cool. Is there anything I can do? No, I'm just gonna stay away. Or you could teach them a lesson. There was a devilish glint in her eyes. What? You should ding-dong ditch them. Go ring the doorbell and run. It'll be great, because they're so slow. They'll never catch you. That's dumb. I don't want to go near them ever again. Beautiful. I'm so glad they voiced that. Cove glared, but didn't take the bait. Lizzie turned to you. You're not a chicken, are you? Yeah, cluck cluck. She can't tease you about being a chicken if you are, in fact, a chicken. Hunched over, you folded your arms and formed wings and bat them up and down. For once, your sister seemed at a loss, but it didn't take long for her to regain her usual confidence. So you admit it. You continue to flap your arm wings as you circle your sister, clucking all the while. There's no shame in a chicken being a chicken. Yeah, you're a chicken. Things were not going the way Lizzie expected. She fought against a laugh and looked for a way to restore her serious authority. You and Cove are both little chickens. Baka? Cove folded his arms, though the one with the cast wasn't as tightly tucked down, and joined you in cheeping around. It was hard to cluck through the giggles that rose up when you saw him imitating a chicken, but you both still gave a first-class performance. The door to the old couple's condo flung open to reveal one of the culprits. Behind Cove's tears, you froze, wings raised. Can't you let anyone have a bit of peace and quiet? He must not be a fan of the theater or farm animals, as well as kids. That was the only explanation for his outburst, which was far louder than anything you and Cove had done. Go on, beat it. It was distinctly unfair, but Cove's lip was trembling and you thought it would be best to heed his command. Lizzie took off, with Shiloh immediately trailing after her without as much as a glance back in your direction. So much for your friendship. You waved your arm at Cove, summoning him to follow you, and ran after Lizzie. The old man's hollers propelled you all from the street to the sanctity of the hill. Only once you were safe did you notice the stitch in your chest and the ache of your legs. You flopped down, the blades of grass tickling your face. Lizzie, who had taken the lead in the end, was already lazing on the ground. The four of you took a moment to catch your breath and enjoy the feeling of the cool grass against your skin. Hey, Cove. Cove lifted his head. I told you there were mean grandparents around here. Cove rolled his eyes, then decided this wasn't dismissive enough and rolled his whole body away from your sister. Lizzie chose to ignore his response and started chatting to Shiloh, who eagerly joined in the conversation. In the back of your mind, you knew you'd be second fiddle again to Shiloh once Lizzie came around. It was always like that. Was it fine? Felt a little sad. And it was always, it's fine. Shiloh could prefer Lizzie as much as he wanted to. There were other things to attend to anyway. You wriggled closer to Cove. He had calmed down for the most part, was inspecting a flower. His fingers pinched at the stem and tilted the white petal towards him. That's a poppy. Cove glanced at you in acknowledgement, then back at the flower. And the type of poppies on this hill have the name white linen poppy, Mom told me. He quirked a smile. That's funny. He ran a finger around the edge of the petals. It doesn't feel like cloth. You'd need a lot of them to make anything. He nodded and released the delicate plant. Evaluation complete. This is my favorite kind of flower, but I didn't know what it was called. Thanks. Oh god, that's a lot of options. Those make me sneeze. Hibiscuses. Sure, orchids are cool. Those flowers are super fancy and come in all sorts of colors and stuff. Some even pretend to be like bugs. They do? Yep, they trick real bugs by looking like one. Wow, you know everything. Not everything, but thanks. You moved onto your back with a small smile and looked at the darkening sky. The blanket of clouds reminded you of a thick throw you curled under during cold, rainy days. You wondered if the clouds would be as soft. They lazily floated by, splitting from each other, merging and morphing into new shapes. What'd we see? Dolphin car. An alpaca. Obviously, we had to pick an alpaca. You saw a fluffy alpaca in the sky. You nudged Cove and pointed to it. Can you see the alpaca? Cove joined in, gazing skywards. Whoa. It's more like a llama. Hey. He chuckled at your reaction. As the sun's light faded from the sky and the moon rose higher, Lizzie got to her feet, dusting strands of grass from her bare legs and surveyed the surroundings. The ocean, visible from the crest of the hill, beckoned with every sweep of the tide. Let's go to the beach. Beach. There was no argument from the other two. Shiloh was still Shiloh, and Cove would never say no to going to the shore. He was a child of the sea. You wanted to go there too? So you eagerly joined the others, descending the hill down to the water. You stepped onto the sand for the second time that day, but it felt different at night. The beach was nearly quiet at this hour, abandoned sandcastles and footsteps in the sand, too big to belong to any of you, were the only indication of how busy it had been only hours earlier. The four of you kicked shoes off and removed socks and walked along the water's edge, the waves tickling your feet. I wonder what would happen if you tried to take a bath in the ocean, with shampoo and everything. That would be bad for the fish. I didn't say anyone would do it, jeez. You don't have to be so serious about everything. You're the one who asked what would happen. That is what would happen. It hurt the fishies. I like bubble baths at home. They're a lot of fun. Me too. Bubble baths are luxurious. You never heard Lizzie use that word before. Mommy loves to have bubbles in her bath. She'll turn off the lights and have candles. I'm gonna do that next time. Hey, when's your mom coming to pick you up anyway? Not for a while. She's busy. What about your dad? How come we never talk about him? Nobody does. Don't you know you're not supposed to ask something like that? Why would somebody want to talk about something they never talk about? You kept your eyes on the ground, watching your toes get swallowed up by waves. Even if Shiloh never seemed upset when this topic came up, made you feel awkward for having both of your moms. It's okay. I'm like Lizzie and Mandy. I don't have a dad, but I don't have two moms. I just have one. She's really great. Oh, sorry. I only have one now, too. My mom isn't here. She's back home. It's just my dad with me. Oh, I never had a dad or anything, so I don't feel bad. It's really sad that your mom is gone. Cove nodded. Even if they're all different, our parents are good in their own ways. Yeah. Cove couldn't muster a response. You don't think he truly disagreed, though. The silence broke with a splash as Lizzie kicked in your direction. Cold water and sodden sand splattered against your legs. Lizzie giggled, foot still outstretched from the kick. Cove joined in, striking the incoming waves to make a splash of his own. Shiloh scurried out of Cove's spray zone with a grin. I retaliated. You used your foot to smack the water pooling around you, sending an arc of sea foam flying back onto your sister. You laughed as she sputtered, some of the salty seawater having landed in her mouth. She spat it out. Yuck. Lizzie chased you, intent on revenge. You dashed up and down the coast, taking it in turns to be the predator and the prey, as well as joining forces to take down Shiloh or Cove. Alliances were silently forged and wordlessly broken. Everything was fair game in war. Ah! Shiloh's brief exclamation was drowned out by the biggest splash yet, caused by him falling face first onto the ground. That would have been bad enough without the wave that followed, cascading over his prone body. Shiloh sat up, shaking his head like a dog coming in from the rain. As you all hurried over to check on him, his hair was plastered to his head and his soaked clothes clung. If there was a part of him that was still dry, you couldn't see it. That was crazy. Are you okay? Yeah, my foot got stuck and I fell over. Way to go, Shiloh, you dumbo. She's so rude. You offered him some help. Shiloh didn't take your outstretched hand. After a moment, you dropped it. Lizzie was too busy snickering to notice and held her hand out to Shiloh too. He reached over and took it. Slowly, he started to pull himself up from the ground. Then he slipped on the slick sand, dragging him and Lizzie down just in time for another wave to hit. The water rolled over them. Oof. Sorry. What were the odds of that happening twice in a row? You thought they must be low, but there's no way Shiloh would do something like that on purpose, then pretend it was an accident, especially not to Lizzie. Even if your relationship with Shiloh felt unclear, He did at least like her a lot. Lizzie was his favorite, right? Smiling boldly, Lizzie extracted herself from the ground and wiped a streak of sand from her cheek. She didn't intend to let this embarrass her. Shiloh got up again as well, this time without incident. He still looked like a drowned puppy, but that didn't stop Cove from laughing at the two of them. With that, it was time to call it a day. The four of you made the journey back home, leaving a trail of wet footsteps and sand in your wake. Damp clothes may have weighed down some of the group, but your spirits were high. Your arms swung side to side as the cool breeze flowed past. Your moms were outside chatting to Cove's dad. "We're back." Your moms' faces fell as they looked in the state you all were in, ranging from messy to soaked. "Elizabeth, is that all you have to say for yourself? You brought half the beach back with you." They certainly did. What's Marigold gonna do when she comes to get Shiloh? Is that how you want him to be for the long drive home, cold and filthy? Lizzie's expression turned sulky over the scolding. Being the oldest could be fun, but it also meant she was the first to get in trouble when something went wrong. Mr. Holden, on the other hand, chuckled as he ruffled Cove's matted hair. "You've been out making memories, bucko? I'm glad you had a good time with your friends." Cove used his slightly moist cast arm to push his dad off. Mr. Holden's eyes widened when he noticed that even that had gotten wet. Now he was worried too. I think they could have found a less risky way to spend the time and had just as much fun. That might be right. Kids, what can you do? Come on, Cove. Let's get you cleaned up and dried off. Wouldn't want that cast to have to be reset. Cove winced at the thought. Okay. That-a boy. Mr. Holden casually bent down, plucked Cove up off the ground, ultimately holding Cove against his chest. Sand was already transferring from Cove onto him, but that didn't seem to bother Mr. Holden. Cove protested being carried, but that only got a reassuring pat on the back for his trouble. "Take care." "Good night, Cove. Thank you for the talk, Cliff." "Night, Leigh family, and Shiloh too." Resigned to his fate, Cove twisted his body in his dad's arms in order to turn around and wave goodbye. Smiling, you returned a tiny wave of your own. "Well, we better do what we can to fix you guys up too. Come on, everybody inside. I want you to march straight to the downstairs bathroom." "Yes, Mom." "Okay, Lizzie's mom." Don't worry about stopping to wipe your feet on the mat this time. That won't do much good tonight." Sitting on an old beach towel your mommy had found, you waited in the hall. Until you were less sandy, you weren't allowed to go to your room or walk around the house. But you did get to eat a sandwich for dinner there. It felt like an indoor picnic. It had been decided that Shiloh would wash first, borrow some of your clothes. He was already finished and packed away in his mom's car. Mrs. Fields had come to collect him a little while ago. It was a bit of a funny experience seeing him without the hat for once. Lizzie, being much more soaked than you, got to go in the tub next. It wasn't a bubble bath as she had hoped. This was a no fun allowed cleanup session. At least that's what she claimed. Not much longer and it would be your turn. When the bath was done, you'd have to go right to bed. After a day like this, though, you were glad that there weren't going to be any further events. Drifting off to sleep sounded like a great idea. All right. Sandcastle time. Cove wasn't able to do many things that summer. When him and Shiloh sat on the shoreline one bright morning, you could tell he wanted to be in the water. There was no way he'd be swimming at any time soon, not with his cast. The waves washed a single shell to shore, glittering in blue, another reminder of the places he couldn't go. From what you'd heard about Cove's old life so far, in tiny pieces and fragments, you could tell that he'd do anything to be able to get the cast off. The possibilities of what he might get up to made you anxious. You thought about how his summer last year must have been totally different from this, with his old home and his mom and dad. But now he was here with you and Shiloh and Lizzie and everyone else. He couldn't even go in the sea. This town wasn't bad. Had all your favorite things in it. But sitting there on the same beach you'd grown up on, you could understand that not everybody else felt the same way about Sunset Bird as you did. You watched him from the corner of your eye quietly, and he finally said aloud what you had been pondering. I wish I could go in. The water? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to be able to do it soon. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently soon wasn't soon enough. It's so pretty, the ocean. And huge. There could be anything out there, like mermaids. Yeah. Swimming might be fun if we could. But it's not like there's anything we can do about it. Obviously not interested in hearing much more of your input on the situation, Cove turned back to the water. But as he looked away, something about Shiloh's slow, careful movements caught his eye. Are you building a sandcastle? Sort of. I was only playing around while you were talking. I'm listening. Maybe I could too. I've only made big piles before. It's really nothing special. I'm sure you'll be good at it right away. Well, how do you do it then? Shiloh's cheeks lit up. You could tell he was a little bit uncomfortable to have Cove's expectant stare on him. I'll play too. I love making sand stuff. He put his hand back to his seashells and sand and nodded. I don't do it a lot. Here's how I like to get a house started. Shiloh focused more intently than you'd ever seen him, guiding Cove through his progress. You happily used your own method. It didn't take long for the three of you each to have humble structures prepared. That's all, kind of. You can do anything now, like make it bigger, add some seashells, carve a pretty pattern. I bet you'll have great ideas. Okay. I'm gonna make it bigger. Mine's gonna be a real castle. Cool. This is gonna be a house. At the base of your sand castle, you decide to make... we're gonna make a castle. Look at the base of your sandcastle. You decide to build a fancy castle. The better part of the next hour was spent focusing on your own work. The boys were the same. Even Shiloh didn't sneak as many peeks at everyone else as he usually did. You finished shaping before either of them did, glancing up from what you'd built. Seems you'd got done so fast because they were already searching around for extra decorations. Shiloh had grabbed most of the really interesting stuff. Cove had a lot of the shells. But there were still options. The first thing you reached for was a green piece of sea glass. It was the best fit for your castle, you decided. It was see-through and sparkly. So you tucked it away somewhere secure inside, barely poking out to make sure it didn't get lost. Pleased with your result, you took a proper look around that wasn't focused on the sand itself. Both Cove and Shiloh seemed super immersed still. You knew you could probably sneak a peek at either of one's work. We're gonna check out Cove's. The castle Cove had built looked surprisingly tidy, especially for someone in a cast. He must have worked really hard. He wasn't even finished digging the huge gaping moat in front of it, but it was already enormous. You got the sense from the enthusiasm he was digging with that the doctor was probably going to find a bunch of sand when he finally removed the pink plaster. The silence was broken. What's on top of yours, Shiloh? You peeked closer and discovered something shiny sticking out of Shiloh's sand chimney. Oh, it was a gum wrapper. It looks like smoke. It's good. That's smart. Yeah, I didn't think of that. You really know a lot about this. Shiloh smiled without a word. And that was that for the current topic. Mandy, can I see what you did? Sure. Scooted just a bit nearer to begin surveying your work. The castle you'd built was pretty impressive, all things considered. It had archways, tall walls, and even a little moat circling it. You would probably feel safe living there. Maybe your mom's work were the queens. Shiloh quickly decided to jump in the new conversation. Hey Mandy, what did you do? I made a castle. Shiloh didn't look so happy anymore. You both built castles? Yeah. Aw, that's neat. That's neat how you guys match. It's too bad we didn't all do it. Next time we should. Wouldn't that be boring? If something is the only one of that thing, that makes it special. Yeah, for sandcastles and stuff. People too. My dad always says how everybody is their own man, a real individual. I don't think I'm very special. Why not? Nobody else is you. Shiloh simply shook his head. I'm not different. A beat passed between the two. Cove then looked down at his own work again. Okay. Didn't seem to be bothered leaving the disagreement hanging there. Cove had other things on his mind. My dad tried to get me to make sandcastles the first time we came to this beach. I didn't want to. Cove trailed off. Again, there was another moment of silence. Shiloh shifted, opened his mouth to say something, but Cove spoke up before he could. You didn't think he noticed that Shiloh was going to talk. Hey, do you know what happened when your moms met my dad, Mandy? You blinked, not expecting the question. You thought hard. I wasn't there. They didn't tell me. Just remember what happened when I met your dad. Mr. Holden had been a weird stranger then. Well, he still kind of was strange. No other parent acted like him, but you knew him better at this point. Now that you thought about it, it made a lot of sense that Cove's dad talked to him about people being unique. You were pulled from your thoughts when Cove continued. Oh, well, I was there. I don't think my mom has met your dad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. Mandy's parents met my dad. And Mandy's parents and my dad met the same day I met her. I'm gonna say what happened. Shiloh frowned to himself, ducking his head. His hat cast a shadow over his face. You could still tell he was upset at not being included in Cove's choice of topic. That was kind of boring of him, though. Though giving people their own turn to say things they want is important, too. You stayed silent and let Cove finish his story. Ugh. Okay, we're gonna save. Because I'm nervous. I think Shiloh wants to talk to you. Huh? We were talking, just not right now. I'm talking to you. He can listen. Damn. Shiloh's expression barely flickered at the words. He still looked put off. Cove continued like the interruption hadn't happened. He was determined to tell the tale. When we moved here, we didn't bring a lot of things with us. Only some stuff that would fit in Dad's car. We didn't even get a moving truck. I sat there while Dad brought it all inside. I didn't want to get out because I knew Dad would make me look around the new house, and I really didn't want to do that. His lips twisted into a frown as he recalled that. Then I saw your moms. They were in a car too. Stopped at your house. Guess they were coming back from somewhere or something. My dad noticed. He waved his hand, then went over to the front of your house where he started talking to them. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear. But he couldn't see me anymore since he was looking the other way. So I opened up the car door and left. Wanted to get away and went behind the houses. Found those hills there. The ones where we met for the first time. Cove nodded, then stared at you. You stared back. He didn't go on to say anything more. Is that it? Cove's brow wrinkled, like he didn't understand why you were surprised. That's all that happened. We'll just say thanks for telling me. You're welcome. Even if not much happened, you weren't going to complain about knowing the story. Shiloh's mouth twisted into a scowl of disbelief, but he said nothing. Why'd you bring that up anyway? There was a slight shrug of Cove's shoulders. I was thinking about it because of the sandcastles. Made me remember that when I moved here, Dad showed me the beach first, before we went back to the car to unpack. He's really excited about it for some reason. Cove's brows furrowed a little more as he quietly raked his hand through the sand. I get it. He thought maybe Mr. Holden wasn't that excited about the beach and was instead hoping Cove might be. But the line of conversation had come to its end. Even Cove was done with it. Some other topic had popped into his head. Shiloh fidgeted uncomfortably in the sand. Shiloh fidgeting uncomfortably in the sand had made Cove aware of his presence again. They looked at each other, and you could only wonder what this might be about. Hey, Shiloh. Yeah? Why are you always turning so red? even when nothing is happening. Clearly startled, he jerked back. Neither you or Shiloh had expected that to be how he got included in the conversation again. I don't know, I guess. Okay, it's kind of weird. Shiloh's eyes were wide with embarrassment and his lips twitched. He was blushing even harder than before. Maybe it wasn't only this. Perhaps it was simply the last straw, but it was a big deal to Shiloh. A huge deal. He didn't just look sad. He seemed almost panicked. You weren't sure if he was about to cry or run away or what, but you soon got an answer. Why do you wear glasses? Most kids don't wear glasses. Nobody's named Cove. Who asked you to come? It was probably your dad bugging Mandy's family some more because you don't have anyone else who will ever play with you. Oh? Cove blinked. The tension on the beach was suddenly uncomfortable, in a way you didn't know how to even mention. It didn't seem like the kind of thing he'd get upset about, though you hadn't ever known what kind of thing would bother Shiloh. I'm sorry. Me too, I was just wondering. Me. Avoidance. Are we gonna build more? You want to keep building sandcastles? Yeah, okay. Cove glanced at Shiloh, whose smile hadn't returned to full power, then at you. Alright. What a relief. You were glad it was settled. You all went back to making more sand buildings, but the whole mood had changed. Shiloh's cheeriness was clearly gone, and Cove looked as confused as ever about why the other boy had blown up. The air stayed uncomfortable the rest of the afternoon, right up until the moment that Shiloh's mom appeared at the beach to take him home. At least you tried to do something to resolve it, though, and it seemed like it helped. Even though Shiloh's smile was when he said, Shiloh's smile when he said goodbye to Cove wavered, stayed as bright as ever for you. That had to count for something. But with Shiloh gone and the sun going down, you knew it was time for you and Cove to head to your own houses. You followed him as he made his way out of the sand. The walk home was quiet. You passed by familiar landmarks, shoes thumping against the sidewalk in near perfect unison. Cove was clearly caught up in thinking about something. We're gonna be nosy. The prospect of asking made you nervous, but you did anyway. Hey, is everything, okay? Oh, I was just wondering. Cove fell silent again for a few more seconds, then he sighed. Why'd Shiloh act like that when I said he was read a lot? Okay, we're gonna save again. Yes. And between this one and he gets embarrassed, we'll try this and see how it goes. You shouldn't make fun of him. I wasn't. It sounded like you were to me. I didn't mean to. I guess I can get it. Why he would do that. Sometimes I get really mad too. Despite seemingly coming to a conclusion, Cove's mood was still sour. Hey, Mandy, was Shiloh telling the truth? Huh? His gaze left yours as he dug the sole of his shoe into the ground. He looked oddly vulnerable for a second. Does my dad make you hang out with me? I know he talks to your moms a lot about that. An uncomfortable weight settled in your chest at the question. You like spending time with Cove. You didn't even have to think hard about it. You knew you did. But you couldn't help feeling guilty. Cove still didn't know what happened when you met Mr. Holden. We're gonna save again. Just real quick. We're gonna be honest. We're gonna be honest about the $20 his dad gave you. You decided to tell him about how his dad offered you money. Well, remember how you talked about how our parents met and I didn't know what happened? Yeah? I kind of had something happen that you don't know about when I met your dad. You struggled to find the right words. Cove looked at you passively. You wilted under his gaze, breaking eye contact. You stared at the ground. I was walking home and your dad was sitting in front of the house. Must have been after you ran away. My moms weren't there either. I think they were looking for you. Your dad saw me. He got up and came over. Mr. Holden told me that he just moved into the house next to mine. You snuck a look at Cove. He was still listening, his expression as plain as before. You paused for a moment, wondering if you should really keep going. We're gonna tell the full story. We still have that save to go back to. Even if it was supposed to be a secret, you thought Cove should still know. Your dad wanted you to have a friend, so he offered me money, $20. Cove was so still, you thought he hadn't heard you. Uh-oh, I'm so scared. Then his eyes widened, his mouth fell open, but no sound left him. Silence stretched between you, so tense that it was almost tangible. You shifted from one foot to the other, and your hands tensed up. Cove? Instead of speaking, he closed his mouth, his eyebrows bent up, crinkling his forehead. He looked more sad than surprised now. He was going to cry, you were certain of it. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Cove raised his hand and brought them up under his glasses, his fingers pressed over his eyes, hiding them from your sight. Then, right in the middle of the street, tears began to fall. His shoulders shook with the force of his sobs. You could glimpse wetness through the cracks of his fingers, slipping down his cheeks. You opened your mouth, but you had no idea what to say. We're gonna touch his shoulder. Awkwardly, you reached over and rested a hand on his shoulder. But Cove shook his body from side to side, rejecting your presence. Go away. You flinched at the shout. As you stood there listening to him cry, you felt bad about everything. As I would. You wished you were still making sandcastles on the beach. Before Cove was sad, before Shiloh was mad, everything had been so much better then. Cove continued to weep with his face covered by his hands. Worse, his voice still raised in volume. You were frozen in place. The situation was awful. You kept feeling worse with every second. You stepped up and tried to wrap your arms around him in a hug. Cove squirmed away from you again, though, ducking his head. It was a full rejection. You heard a door opening and you flinched, expecting to see one of the mean old grandparents preparing themselves to yell at you. This hour, most people weren't around, either, because they were working or down in town. The grandparents rarely left the house, except to complain at children making noise in the street. You didn't want Cove to have to deal with that right now. You tried to come up with something so you could do for him, for the situation, for anything. But the door that stood open now didn't belong to his grandparents. To your utter surprise and relief, it was Cove's own. His dad was already home. As he peeked out his door, Mr. Holden momentarily looked unsure. Perhaps he had suspicions on the noise outside, but it wasn't entirely positive. Though a kid crying is pretty distinct. There aren't a lot of kids. Maybe he didn't want to believe something might be wrong with his son. His face fell as he spotted the source of the commotion. It was pained and it was scared, and it reminded you of the one he'd worn the first night you met Cove. Mr. Holden didn't go down the steps in front of his house. He just jumped right over them, stumbled into a run. He skidded to a stop before Cove, bent down on one knee, and then solidly cupped Cove's teary face with his hands. What's wrong? Are you hurt anywhere? Cove continued to cry, unable or unwilling to cough out an explanation. Not taking his hands from Cove, Mr. Holden turned to you for explanation, his eyes wide and imploring. He wanted to know if you tried to make me hang out with him. I told him about the money. As he spoke, Mr. Holden's chest rose while he inhaled a deep, shaky breath, culminating in a gasp at your final words. Why? Why would you? He clamped his mouth shut, shaking his head. He faced his crying son again. No, it's my fault. I shouldn't have done something like that in the first place. He cast his eyes down, sighing. When he next spoke, it wasn't part of a conversation anymore. It was barely loud enough for you to catch his words. Mandy's only a kid. Tears were still streaming down Cove's face. Smiling sadly, Mr. Holden wiped Cove's cheeks with a thumb. He furrowed his brows and looked at the ground. When he next glanced up, his mouth was set with determination. Mr. Holden finally took his hands off Cove, then reached out for his wallet. Confused, you stared at the little rectangle that adults seemed to carry in some shape or form. It had been the source of all these problems. You were sure that Cove wouldn't want to be reminded of it right now. Mr. Holden was clearly of a different mind to you. He inexplicably retrieved another $20 bill, rolled it up, raised it to Cove's face. Cove's eyes were hidden behind tightly clamped fingers, so Mr. Holden poked Cove's nose with the bill. Cove peeked between his hands and grunted as he saw what he had been prodded with. Even if it was surrounded by sobs, you were glad that something else had finally left Cove's mouth. Hey, Cove, can you stop crying? I'll give you this cash if you do. I was like, this is my problem solving. Cove dropped his hands from his face. It had already been red and wet with tears, but now his features were scrunched up in a scowl. Not for the first time, he questioned Mr. Holden's tactics. He had used 2 hands, but Cove firmly shoved his dad's own hand away. But Mr. Holden just chuckled at Cove's reaction and tossed the money aside. It unfurled as it flew through the air, rising before slowly drifting to the ground. Mr. Holden took Cove's outstretched wrists, lowered them to Cove's sides, stopping him from hiding his face once again. Cove's dad clearly wasn't going to let go. Huffing, Cove turned his whole head away, tears continuing to roll down his cheeks as he glowered at the ground. You can buy a lot of cool things with that, but it can't do everything, can it? Cove didn't respond. Not even to look at his father. Mr. Holden continued. Your old dad likes to make things nice for you with the money he earns. But you're smart. You know I haven't really done anything. I still make you sad and upset, just like right now. I'm sorry. Cove sniffed, the harsh line of his brow mellowing. Mr. Holden squeezed Cove's hand as he continued. Mandy is smart too, right? Don't ask him that right now. I'll probably say no. Probably say no, that's a big giant dummy. Mr. Holden spoke in a soft, encouraging tone, and Cove continued to calm. You have nothing to worry about. Except for me. Mr. Holden chuckled. Cove pressed his lips together, mulling over his father's words. The stream of tears had eased. Drops still budded in his eyes, threatening to spill out. I love you, son, so much. More than anybody else. Sometimes that makes me a little too hasty to see you happy. And I make it all worse. I really am sorry. Scrunching his eyes tight, Cove nodded. When his eyes opened again, they were red and glossy, but there were no tears left on the precipice of his lower lashes. Aside from the occasional sniff, he was mostly back to his usual self. He swallowed. Okay. Though Cove had refused to echo Mr. Holden's exact words, the sentiment seemed to be enough for his dad. He moved his hands up under Cove's armpits and hoisted Cove high into the air with a grin. Cove's hands flew to his glasses, holding them back from falling off. Cove's lips were shut tight, all betrayed by the telltale smile in his eyes that he was trying to hide. Mr. Holden laughed, lowering Cove so that he was securely pinned against his chest. Cove looked away, face angled to the ground. Now that his dad could no longer see him, he was allowing himself a smile. Mr. Holden might have missed it, but you didn't. Cove wriggled, pushing a hand against his dad's shoulders. Can I go back down now? Yeah. Mr. Holden set Cove gently on the ground, waiting until his feet found their footing before releasing him entirely. I have to do something. Wait here. As Cove wandered away, Mr. Holden's gaze stuck to him like glue. You sighed, eyes downcast. You felt weird that you'd only been able to stand there while the event unfolded. You weren't able to fix it. I couldn't do anything. Don't worry about it, please. We don't need another tragedy today. He winked at you and you weren't impressed. I mean that. The first part anyway. There's only so much you can do to try fixing someone else's mistake. He smiled sincerely at you. You've done plenty for Cove. Just the fact that you were honest with him when his own dad wasn't proves it. Thanks for being such a good kid. I hope you'll keep spending time with the boy. As though the sound of his name summoned him, Cove returned, clutching the bill his dad had cast aside earlier. You cocked your head, and Cove's dad raised his eyebrows. Cove looked at the crumpled note, then walked over and held it out to you. I stopped crying, but I don't want this. You can have it. He gave you a small smile. Behind him, Mr. Holden was watching Cove closely, clearly relieved. You shared the feeling. Cove was making peace with the deal that happened behind his back. Nah. I still have that $20 bill just chilling. Shaking your head, you push the note back to Cove. I don't need it, but I don't want it. Give it back to your dad, Jesus. You were at a stalemate. Mr. Holden hummed thoughtfully. Tapping his head, he gazed up at the wide sky as he pretended to give the conundrum serious consideration. I know. He plucked the bill from Cove and tore it right in two. You and Cove gasped in unison. Dad, we can't do anything with it now. True, it won't work at the store like this, but now you can split it. That is not how that works. Crouching down, he held out the pieces to you and Cove. You both looked at the two halves. Neither of you reached for them. It still has a value as a keepsake, a memory. That's one of the most valuable things you can use money on. That sounds pretty good, huh? Maybe I'm getting smarter. Wordlessly, Cove stretched out a hand and took his half. You took yours, running a finger along the jagged edge of the bill. It was cool to think that no other note would share this exact same feature. The precise peaks and troughs of the tear, except for Cove's, which would bear them in reverse. It did still feel like there was value left in it. Mr. Holden stood up, stretching his arms out casually. Well then, it's about time for dinner. Me and the Rugrat need to be going in. You probably should too. I bet your moms want to see you. All right. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Have a good night, and thanks, Mandy. Father and son waved at you as you turned and dashed back home. The note clenched tightly in your hand. You felt lighter. All right. You will not believe your eyes. We're doing fireflies. All right. Tonight, we're going to catch fireflies. At this blunt declaration from your sister, you looked up from your macaroni and cheese dinner. Fireflies were a familiar sight over summer, coming out on warm nights to dance through the sky. Tonight was particularly balmy. You knew that there were bound to be a ton of them around. Oh, you are you? Yeah. You rock lightly from side to side in your seat, already excited for your after-dinner activity. Catching fireflies was a great way to spend a summer evening, and you could already envision the little lightning bugs drifting through the darkened sky. That's a good idea, Lizzie. Can we, Mrs. Lee? Shiloh tapped his fork against the table excitedly, his face lighting up as he looked at Lizzie. It was unusual for Shiloh to still be here. Like always, his mom had to bring him over really early in the morning, before her job started. But normally she would have picked him up by now. She called before dinner to let your moms know she'd be late. You didn't hear why, probably more work things. You thought maybe getting to hang out with Shiloh for longer is what made Lizzie want to keep running around outside. Staying at home and watching TV was never an option for her with guests over. That's why you were pretty sure she'd get your moms to agree. Well, it's already so dark out there. Lizzie gave Mom the best puppy dog eyes she could, slowly spooning mac and cheese into her mouth while you waited there for their response. Let them go. Nights like this don't happen every day. Your parents exchange a look, then Mom eventually sighs and nodded back. Yes! Along with Lizzie's cheers, you threw your arms up in triumph, but waited until you'd finished chewing to say anything because you knew it was rude to talk with your mouth full. Fine. Just make sure you stay on the hill behind our house with all the poppies, okay? Duh, Mom. That's where most of them are. The idea had only just been planted in your head, but already you could just picture all the glowing lights spread out in front of you, like the fairies from the bedtime stories Mommy read sometimes. All too quickly, it became a race to see who could finish their food first. No choking at the dinner table now. What a reasonable rule. I think every table should have that. No choking. That's right. Someone died, we'd have to cancel the firefly trip after all. Mom said it like a joke, but you knew that they were both telling you kids to slow down. Shiloh did immediately. You glanced at Lizzie, you saw her still eating faster than she should. Elizabeth. No one's gonna die. Sheesh. A knock on the door interrupts Mom, where she could no doubt scold your sister. I'll get it. Your big sister jumped out of her seat and ran over to the door, pulling it open without even looking out the window to see who it was. Huh? You shifted in your seat to try and get a glimpse of the unexpected guest.
Hi.
Good evening, Cove. Your mommy had already walked to the door by the time you managed to see past Shiloh's flappy hat. A big smile stretched across your face. When you lifted your hand and waved, Cove's pink cast went up to return it shortly after. Didn't matter why he was there, it meant he could join you all in catching fireflies. Then, for a few seconds, Cove said nothing. He only stood there and looked up at your mommy with a face almost like he was considering turning around and leaving. My dad told me to drop this off because I guess he borrowed it from you. Cove took a familiar screwdriver out from his large side pocket. Eyes now dropped to the floor. We left ours back home when we moved. Great. Thanks. Bye. Lizzie's so rude. Thank you. Here, why don't you come inside for a bit? Lizzie crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cove shrugged. Mom stood from the table too. I'll give your dad a call and let him know you got here all right. He's like literally next door. From my understanding, they're next door neighbors. Cove shuffled fully inside, eyes remaining on the ground. Mommy closed the door behind him. Hi, Cove. Shiloh gave Cove a friendly smile while waving by holding up his hand and opening and closing his fingers. The girly wave, yes! Shiloh knows. Cove nodded in response. Cove, are you gonna catch fireflies with us? You can come outside with us if you want to. I'm not sure what to say now. We're gonna ask. You could see Lizzie eyeing you for the mention of the excursion to an outsider, but she'd get over it. You dragged your foot over the floor in front of you, feeling too shy to say any more.
Yeah.
I can do that. I've never caught one before. It's too bad he didn't have a chance before now. The fireflies weren't out when he first moved in. There must not have been anywhere he used to live. We can't go until after dinner. After she pointed this out, Lizzie walked back to the table, took her seat. There wasn't much left on her plate. Since this was very true, you decided to finish up your own stuff as well. Cove stepped closer and eyed what was on the menu for your family's meal. Have you eaten yet? Yeah, my dad and I ate dinner earlier. What did you have? Eggs. The clipped one-word answer seemed to discourage Shiloh from asking any more questions. His eyes slowly wandered back to the last scraps of food on his plate. Her phone call with Cove's dad must have ended because your mom came back into the room.
Okay.
Cove, your dad said you can stay for a little while if you'd like. He's going to come get you before it gets too much later. Sure?
Fine.
Oh, fun. This will be so nice. As you polished off the meal, you hoped it would be too. The three of you all finished eating shortly after, and Lizzie led the way outside. Remember, don't stray too far. It's fine, Mom. Shiloh trailed so closely after Lizzie he was nearly stepping on her heels. Cove hesitated at the door. You smiled lightly at Cove, gesturing for him to follow. After a moment, he did.
Bye.
Bye, children. The two of you were a good 10 or 15 feet behind Lizzie and Shiloh. By the time you walked outside, you pushed the door shut behind you, watching their figures get farther and farther away. You're so slow, Mandy. We don't have all night. You started to run when you heard Lizzie's voice calling you, but paused when you saw Cove still walking at a relaxed pace. We're gonna walk with him. You fell behind, sidling up next to him and matching his stride. He noticed right away. You can go ahead if you want. You smile and shake your head. After a short while, the two of you reached the hill behind the house. The fireflies were out in full force, floating on the breeze, their gentle glow winking in and out, creating almost a magical effect. Lizzie already had climbed to the top. Shiloh was spinning in circles somewhere around the middle. Wow. Shiloh took a moment to come over and welcome the both of you to the hill. Hi guys, it's really great out, huh? See how many there are? Yeah. A firefly danced through the air, landing on Cove's sea-green head. You and Shiloh couldn't help but giggle. Covering your mouth with a hand, the sound escaped you, and Cove looked at you in confusion. What? You gestured to his head, and he reached up, making the firefly dart away. Cove jumped, then followed after the glow. Oh, look, Lizzie has one. That's amazing. Shiloh ran to the highest point of the hill, making sure not to lose his hat or backpack along the way. You hummed as the group divided and conquered, shifting your gaze to the dozens of other fireflies sailing around. The game was on. We'll just do that one, I guess. Spotting one close by, you approached it with assassin-like stealth. That could never be me. Crouching down to make you seem like less of a threat. Slowly dragging one foot in front of the other, you crept towards it, arms outstretched. You closed your hands around the little glowing orb, careful not to crush it. The firefly landed on your palm, almost docile, as you stared down at your prize in delight. Its tiny legs tickled your skin, and you giggled at the sensation. Cove kept up with his own target, but when he tried to grab it, his pink cast waved awkwardly through the air, foiling his efforts to clap his hands around the firefly. Ugh. Cove watched it vanish into thin air with a dissatisfied expression on his face. What did I do? Okay, you encouraged him to try again. You walked up beside him and gave him an encouraging smile. Did you catch one? You nodded, and Cove gave up his hunt for the moment, coming closer and peering at the insect still crawling across your palm. You held out your hand, and he leaned closer, eyes widening a tad behind his glasses. Cove remained hypnotized by the little bug. He inched his hand closer to yours. Ultimately, he settled, his fingers lightly overtopped the ones you were holding open. It tingled. I stayed very still. You were so nervous you thought you had stopped breathing. But no matter what, you didn't want to scare the shiny treasure. The firefly, noticing the new connection, crawled up onto Cove's hand. He quietly gasped. It worked! Yeah, you got one. Cove's lips turned into a slow smile, and his eyes shined brighter than the bug. Thanks, Mandy. With a laugh, he gave the palm of your hand a friendly smack, performing an awkward low five. Startled by the extreme movement, the tiny light disappeared before you could even blink. Your firefly was gone. Oops, sorry. That's okay. I couldn't keep it forever. Right. Bugs have to stay outside. That is a reasonable thought. Absolutely, they should stay outside. Don't come in. Bye. Let's get another. You decided to collect some more. We can work together. His face broke out into a wide grin. Yeah, we'll get a bunch. With renewed vigor, you ran out onto the hill. You're not sure how much time passed while you were in the thick of it. All you could focus on was the adventure at hand. No critter was safe from your grasp. At first, you tried to keep a tally of how many you had caught, but once the number grew higher than 10, you had no more fingers left to count with. You were having the time of your life, racing up and down the hill, with the crash of the ocean and the sound of everyone's laughter echoing in the background. Mandy, this way. You followed the sound of Cove's voice to the top of the hill, watching as he stretched his arms out in front of him, reaching with his fingers, only narrowly missing his target. Cove and you took turns trying to scare fireflies in the direction of the other. You showed him some techniques that you had learned, like how to cup your hands correctly. He listened attentively before trying for himself. There were a few times when you almost ran into each other, giggling as you dove to the side at the last moment. Luckily, disaster was avoided each time. It was an overall huge success with the both of you catching multiple fireflies each. Eventually, the fireflies began to thin out. Your energy started to lapse. You decided it was time to call off the hunt. Cove didn't complain. He breathed heavily and his face seemed really flushed. That was fun, a lot of fun. You smiled at him broadly, happy that he had enjoyed the activity. Yeah, it was. Mandy, Cove, get up here. We're gonna have a race. The shouting caught you off guard. It had been quite a while since you heard from Lizzie or Shiloh. You glanced over to see them both standing on top of the hill again, Lizzie beckoning you with a quick hand gesture. If she was like that, you knew there wasn't much room for disagreement. Up the incline you went. From the corner of your eye, you saw Cove was coming as well. He didn't care for Lizzie a lot, so he thought he might just be intrigued by the idea of a race. Hi. Hi, Cove. You can't roll down the hill. You could hurt your arm again. You'll be the referee for the rest of us. As Lizzie pointed this out, Cove froze in place. Oh, it was that kind of race. He frowned down at his cast. This was the second time it got in the way tonight. What? Yeah, you'll watch and see who gets to the bottom first. That's important. Got it? I guess. The cast was sturdy. If he was careful, he could have done it. Lizzie might have just been looking for a reason to make someone else the referee, but it was already decided. I'll stay with Cove. Really? Why? You don't have to. It's okay. I want to watch. You moved beside him on top of the hill, even though Lizzie eyed you and made a face. That's not how races work. We only need one referee. Shrugging your shoulders, you refused to budge. Lizzie let out a huff before throwing her hands in the air. Fine, I'll be the winner, whether you join or not. Of course. Lizzie moved to lay down. Shiloh did the same. Cove stood slightly to the side to get a better vantage point, and you stood next to him. Countdown. Cove stood up a little straighter. It seemed like he was taking his newfound referee duties seriously. 3, 2, 1, go! Lizzie and Shiloh took off, letting gravity do the work and rolling at high speed towards the bottom of the hill. You and Cove leaned forward, watching them go, eyes peeled for which of them would reach the bottom first. They were both neck and neck until about halfway down the hill, Lizzie started to veer off to the side, giving Shiloh a huge advantage. She obviously hadn't noticed a thing, and as soon as Shiloh reached the bottom of the hill, he jumped up excitedly and threw his hands in the air. I won! She almost immediately fell back into the grass. Almost immediately he fell back onto the grass, still dizzy from his roll down the hill. Lizzie stomped out of the bush she had ended up in, spluttering angrily and brushing leaves from the front of her dress. Not bad, you got lucky. Let's do it again and see who wins for real. That was practice run. Kids, it's time to come in. No! You snickered, feeling grateful you hadn't been a part of this mini debacle. You caught Cove's eyes and saw that he was doing the same. It had gotten late and was beginning to feel just a bit chilly as you made your way out of the hills. But the cold in the air hadn't dampened anyone's spirits. The four of you walked back home together, side by side down your neighborhood street, discussing the evening with each person, trying to prove that they were the ones who caught the most fireflies. You knew that whoever really did catch the most didn't matter much anyway. All that mattered was that you all had a good time, which, judging by the smiles on everyone's faces, you did. Oh my god. Okay, so next one, we're gonna start step 2. So we will end here for this video. I had fun. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in episode 4. Bye, gang. Love y'all.